Hello, ninth graders. This is a recording of the presentation that we had last week in advisory called Why High School Grades Matter. First off, they're going to matter for athletic eligibility. Anyone wishing to participate in a sport must be passing all classes at the end of the quarter preceding their sport. So if you're interested in playing a winter sport, you need to be passing at the end of quarter one. So coming right up this week. This is a little bit more strict than the Rhode Island Interscholastic League rules. So if you have an F, you are still technically eligible by their rules, but not by ours, which means that there is a process by which you are given a few weeks to bring up your grades, and then you can participate, usually about 2 weeks after the quarter. So I would recommend contacting Ms. Rhodes, our athletic director, for more information about that. Earning credits. Graduating from high school is all about earning credits, and that's a little bit of a departure from what you're used to. Prior to this, we used what we call social promotion. So if you didn't pass fifth grade, but your teachers felt that maybe you were mature enough to be a sixth grader, you got moved up to sixth grade. Some of you may not have passed a class at Cole, and yet you're still here. And that's fine, and there are a lot of reasons why we do that, but that ends in high school. In high school, you must earn credits to graduate. It really doesn't matter if you like your teachers. You don't need to like them. It doesn't matter if your teachers like you. They don't really need to like you to be good teachers. It doesn't matter if you think your classes are too boring, if you think they're too hard, too easy, or if you just think they're pointless. And it really doesn't even matter that we're in the middle of a global pandemic. You need to earn 24.5 credits to graduate from East Greenwich High School. That's an important number to remember, 24.5. There is no option this year to take your classes pass-fail. I know last year at the high school we had that option for students. At Cole, no one had the option. Everyone took their classes pass-fail. But this year there will be no option. You will be getting grades for all of your classes. So you're starting to work towards that total of 24.5 credits. So what exactly do you need by way of credits? To graduate from EGHS, you need 4 credits of math and English, so every single year. You need 3 credits of science and social studies, and one of those social studies credits needs to be U.S. history, although we do strongly recommend that you take 4 years of each of those, particularly if you're thinking of going to college after high school. You need 2 credits of health and PE, but you need to be enrolled in those classes every year. That is a state mandate, so you earn a half credit each year. You need a half credit of a computer education class, a half credit of fine arts, which could be either visual arts or performing arts, and you need a half credit of senior project. Plus, you need enough elective credits to total 24.5 credits. Now, for those of you out there that are math savvy and can do math quickly on your feet, if you're enrolled in 7 credits each year and pass everything, you'll actually graduate with 28.5 credits when we include senior project in the mix. And so you will have some wiggle room, but not a lot. So if you're struggling now, we need to kind of get things into gear because you could dig yourself into a pretty big hole pretty quickly. World language is not a graduation requirement, but it's highly recommended. So you don't need to take a class in world language, either Latin, Spanish, or French, to graduate from the high school. However, if you're thinking of going to college, they require a minimum of 2 years of language at the high school level for admission. Many of them would prefer to see 3. Now, at this point, you may not know if you want to go to college or not, but we encourage you to take those world language classes because it will keep that opportunity open for you. And this is just a credit requirements worksheet. Again, it's something we do encourage you to start thinking about. Course selection will be starting after the winter break. And so it's good to start thinking about what you're taking now, which class you're passing, and which classes you still need to graduate. It's also important to note, if you notice, English 9 is a graduation requirement. If you do not pass 9th grade English, you have to take it next year. You don't just bump ahead to sophomore English. You have to take ninth grade English again with next year's ninth graders. The same thing with social studies. If you don't pass American democracy, you need to take it again next year with ninth graders. So it's really important, if you don't want to do that, that you pass everything this year. We do have a live link to this credit requirement form in case you want to print it out and use that to start planning for your future. We have a sample transcript here for you, just to give you an idea of what that's going to look like after 4 years. Notice we only put final grades on your transcript. And that's kind of nice because if you've had a rough first quarter, let's say you didn't really realize all this mattered, then you can improve over time, and no one in the future is going to see that rough first quarter. Now, your grades from this quarter will calculate into those final grades, so it's going to affect that. But if you do a nice job for the rest of the year in all of your classes, it should kind of offset that well enough so that it doesn't have a huge impact. We do put your credits each year, the total credits that you've earned, as well as your yearly GPA. All those final grades get calculated into your grade point average, which is down here. Notice we have two. We report weighted and unweighted GPA. Weighted GPA means that we're going to give extra credit, extra grade points for honors and AP classes. So you can actually graduate with more than a 4.0 if you have lots of honors and AP classes and you get A's in them. The unweighted GPA is just all of those same classes, but without that additional weight. So just straight out if everything counted exactly the same. We do have a short video for you to talk about the power of a zero. And this is important. Sometimes students fail to do a homework assignment, or they don't pass in a project, and they just think, oh, it's 1 0 out of many of my grades. It's not a big deal. But it really is. That 1 0 can have a pretty significant impact on your grades. In this video, it's important to note that they use the term E instead of F. So here we use Fs as the lowest possible grade, as most of us do in the area. In other parts of the country, they use E instead of F, or in other schools, it means the same thing. So when the speaker refers to an E being the lowest grade, think about it as an F.
Hi, I'm Brian from Soar Study Skills. Usually when we shoot a video, we're providing helpful information for teachers or parents. But students, today it's all about you. I want to talk to you about the impact of a zero. You know, that ugly goose egg that ends up in your teacher's grade book when you don't complete your work or don't turn it in. Have you ever thought about the true impact of that zero? Probably not, but today we're going to take a closer look at it. To examine the impact of a zero on our grades, I created two fictitious students, Joe Average and Alex Allstar. First, let's establish a couple of assumptions. To keep this example easy, let's just assume that there's 10 assignments in this particular card marking, that each assignment is worth 10 points. First, you can see Joe Average gets, anywhere from 7 to 10 points out of 10 on his assignments, and Alex Allstar does a little better, mostly 9s and 10s. Let's take a look at what a zero is going to do to these students' grades. So we'll give Joe 2 zeros. That's going to drop his 81% average down to a 64%, which takes him from a B- down to a D. What's going to happen to Alex? Well, we'll give him a couple zeros here. That's going to drop his 95% average down to a 76%. So his A dropped down to a C, just because in both cases here, they missed 2 assignments, just didn't turn them in or didn't complete them or whatever. Well, we need to talk about something in particular here, that not all bad grades are created equal. We tend to think of a zero as an E. Why? Because in most grading systems, an E is the lowest level grade that you can earn. So you don't turn something in, you get a zero, you get an E. Well, that's not always necessarily true, because an E is not always equal to a zero. Let's go back to our example of Joe and Alex. What if, instead of just not completely turning these assignments in, what if they turned them in but just got a poor score, like a 5 out of 10, which would be an E? So we'll give Joe 5s instead of zeros here, and we'll see that his 64% average rises to a 74%, and that instead of a D, he has a C. And same with Alex Allstar. If we replace his zeros with 5 out of 10s, we'll see that his 76 rises to an 86%, and that his C is now a B. So we can see in both of these cases here that a 0 has a devastating impact as compared to something like an E, which was just 5 out of 10 points. Hi, I'm Brian from Source Study Skills.
So why do zeros happen? Well, first of all, we know that none of you out there plan to fail. Nobody that I have met in this job wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to fail today, and I'm going to look for different ways to do that. Nobody wants to do that, but it still happens. Sometimes we forget we have assignments, or we forget we have a test or a quiz. Sometimes we think we're going to have the time, but we don't. Maybe we procrastinate and put something off because we think we'll have plenty of time, and then something happens in your life that takes that time away, or something takes longer than you anticipated. And we lose important papers. Both important papers, sometimes we lose unimportant papers, but they have an impact on some of the other important work that we need to do. So how do we take care of that? What do we do to then move forward and fix these problems? So let's solve this 0 problem, because we know that this is going to have an impact on our grade. If you forget assignments often, keep an agenda or a planner. Now you can do this either in digital form, as for instance, like Google Keep or Google Calendar, which you can actually interface with your phone and have it send you phone alerts, or you can have a physical calendar or physical planning book. I would argue that it might be helpful to have some form of both. Certainly with Google Classroom, I think it's easier to have some digital forms of keeping track of your assignments. However, the problem with that is once you close your Chromebook, you no longer see that visual of what you have to do when. And so I think there could be some value for many students, particularly if you find yourself forgetting often, to have that visual cue where you're going to see it all the time, maybe a wall calendar or an assignment book that you can kind of keep open and organize your work that way. If you feel that you don't have the time, maybe prioritizing. So if you have a long-term assignment, don't just put it on the day it's due, maybe put it on every day so you can work on it a little bit each day. Maybe taking a look at which assignments, if you have a lot, are worth more than others. If you have to prioritize and not do something, you don't want to not do something that's worth a lot of points, right? And then losing important papers. So thinking about how to organize your work in folders or binders, and this can be physical folders and binders. Maybe you print work out, maybe you like to see those hard copies and you keep them in a folder, or maybe you're organizing digital folders. For instance, in your Gmail account, you're probably getting a ton of emails, some of which are important and some are not. You can organize them into folders so you can go back to those later. The same thing with some of your other assignments. You can organize them in your Google Drive into particular folders, maybe by class or even by topic. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask your teachers. They are available after school. They're available during class at times when there's some more free time to talk. They're available on Mondays, asynchronous Mondays. You can set up a Google Meet with them. Don't be afraid to ask your parents. I know you don't always like to do that, but your parents do know how school operates and they do know how to be organized. Also, feel free to help your school counselor. Ask your school counselor. We are here to help you. We are here to guide you through all of this, and we can help you setting up folders. We can help you advocate with your teacher. We can help you prioritize large projects into smaller parts and organize yourself in that way. If you go to this is actually a live link to the library website, which has some other helpful hints on organizing your work, on how to get extra help. There are also links on that site to the National Honor Society individual tutoring options, which you can apply for, or the drop-in tutoring center, which is something you can just pop into and ask a question if you need to. And that really concludes our presentation. If you could take a few minutes and fill out, this is a live link to a Google form. If you could take a few minutes and fill that out, We would greatly appreciate it because that will help us understand how many of you actually sat through this presentation. So that form is only for those of you who weren't at the original presentation, and it's going to also help us improve this presentation for the future. Thank you so much for your time.